So we've got about an hour, and I want to keep this as a informal conversation and ask questions as we go, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. In about half a dozen slides or so, Bargo Bahat should be on the call, and he will actually do a walkthrough demonstration of some aspects around ChatGPT that you've probably heard about. So let's get into it. Now, first of all, let me wish you a happy Christmas and a happy New Year. In Australia, we're heading into what we call the silly season because it's school holidays, summer holidays, Parliament's out, and that sort of thing. So, first of all, happy Christmas to and happy New Year to everybody. Okay, artificial intelligence, there's been a lot of talk about it in the media. There's a lot of hype. There's doomsday scenarios. There's unrealistic expectations. We all know the reality is going to be somewhere in between, but it is a transformative technology that's going to impact all of our lives. Its implementation is something that we're going to have to manage from a business, a societal perspective. And this is what we want to sort of talk through today. Now, the outline of the talk is to cover off some expectations, look at some of the myths and the realities, look at how it's currently impacting our lives going forward, talk about the emerging aspects, talk about some considerations, get into the technology and wrap it up. Now, we may not get time to do all of these, which is fine. We will share the slides with everybody after the session, and there's a recording that will be shared as well. Okay, so let's get into the expectations and a bit of context to this. Okay, when we talk about artificial intelligence and technology, it's impacting our lives now and it's going to impact going forward. So it's how are we going to be impacted? How is AI going to be used within business and government and healthcare and education to provide the services to others? We are going to be impacted by government agencies and what they do around AI. And then there's already concerns about, are we losing jobs? We've had the Hollywood strike. We hear stories about crime and that sort of thing related to AI. These are all things that we will need to work our way through. Now, governments are going to implement AI into what they do, and then that's going to impact the services that we use from government. So even though I may be a three-man operation, small scale manufacturing, limited use of technology, I am going to be impacted. Small businesses, again, it's mainly through government, the supply chains, financial payments, and aspects of legal are going to impact you. Similarly, for medium business, larger business are going to be a much bigger uptake of AI. They're going to be a much bigger user of it, and they're going to impact their supply chains as well. And then on an individual basis, it's going to impact you, things like healthcare, education, and of course, how you interact with government. And one of the big ones on a personal level is safety and protection, whether it's your financial data, whether it's AI to protect you from the different scams that you receive on emails and mobile phones. Now, who's can you use the little hand button? Who's heard of quantum computing? Sorry, I thought don't worry. Okay, I can't see a little raise your hand button, but that's okay. Quantum computing is coming down the pipeline. It's not here yet, but it's coming down through. The universities are researching it. There's various applications coming through with it. And quantum computing is basically, instead of it just being binary ones and zeros, yes and no, it's going to be multiple state. Now, the reason that's important is because cryptography is everything that we use in our lives. So whether it's cryptid Wi-Fi passwords, whether it's TV sets connecting across Wi-Fi, you name it, cryptography is almost ubiquitous in our lives. Now, the experts tell us by 2030, around that date, that the use of quantum computing will make all the existing cryptography redundant. The American government has a mandate to get this done. There's a big transition coming down the pipeline, and there's big opportunities coming down the pipeline. Now, whilst we may not be directly exposed to quantum computing, we all use cryptography. If you look at banks, they're already starting to release standards around cryptography that will not be able to be broken by quantum computing. Those impacts are already starting to come through the pipeline now, even though we don't think the impacts will be there till 2030. So this is just one example of how AI is going to impact us, because whether we use the mobile phones, whether we use the little padlocks on the browsers, we are going to be impacted by AI, and transitions will need to occur and be made. Now, don't worry about it and don't see this in a negative way. All it is just to present that these are the types of things that are coming through the pipeline, which as a business, you may need to consider going forward. Now, with AI, there's the personal use, there's the small organizations that use it, the medium, the large, and the global organizations. Now, there's a thing called machine to machine. So what happens is Google has scanned nearly every book that they have access to on the planet. Not that we're going to read it, but because the machines are going to read it, they're going to interpret it and do things with it. We will consume services that use AI. We will use the machine products and services that come out. There will be our own data. We will have blended data products that we will use, and we'll talk about this a little bit further as we go. We won't get into open loop and closed loop today. Now, basically, AI is going to come at us in a couple of ways. One is the public AI services. So if you've used ChatGPT to write a fun letter to a friend, that's there. Large organizations like banks, the big consulting services, big manufacturing operators like Toyota, they're going to be standing up their own private instances of AI services to use within their business and in servicing customers and clients. Now, one of the ones is that there's going to be standalone AI applications, but also AI is going to be embedded within the software that we use. So, for example, if we're using manufacturing software, AI is going to be embedded within that. We're using logistics management software, AI is going to be embedded within that. We may not know that it's embedded in there. We as businesses may need to skill up our staff, but these sort of things are coming. Now, if you're in agriculture, there will be sort of sector specific AI for agriculture, And then, of course, there's going to be various custom applications to use and have access to. What I'll do is I'll skip through a couple more slides, then pause and throw it open for comments and discussion. So we know that it's going to create new jobs. Some existing jobs may lapse. There will be challenges around uplifting in skilling of the workforce. But overall, history tells us that there's an increase in jobs associated with these kinds of transformations. The challenge is how we manage it and how we work it through. AI is going to have massive impacts on government policy. So not only is government policy going to influence the uptake of AI, but everything from defense, regulatory, managing the supplies of food, managing the supply of utilities like gas and electricity, AI is coming through the pipeline and is going to be worked its way through. One of the big challenges and the big opportunities is it's going to require people with higher skill sets to use AI. So then how do we get them skilled up? Where do the teachers come from? Where are the resources coming from for all of this? And this is just part of the mix to work our way through. And of course, there's the impacts on business. Now, we research, we design, we develop, we test, we do operations and services, we consume things, we manage their operations, and we assure the delivery of things. So whether it's a manufacturing assembly line and we're assuring the quality of garments coming off an assembly line, or whether it's banking and financial transactions, we have these different roles that are going to be impacted and use AI in different ways. And one of the big changes that we're already starting to see is what we call the pilot and autopilot model. So at the moment, once an aircraft is taken off, a lot of the flying of the aircraft is done automatically, and the pilots and the co-pilot aren't actively flying the plane. It's all the computers and the technology that's flying the plane. The AI is embedded within that. What the pilot does is they create these things for the first time. They intervene when things go wrong. They assure that things are working, and they manage stakeholders. And if you look at it even now within financial services, with mortgage processing and approvals, with insurance processing and approvals, we're starting to see this model becoming more prolific within the workplace. Now, one more slide and then we'll pause. We've talked about how AI is standalone and it becomes embedded. We've talked about the pilot and the autopilot model. One of the biggest issues around AI is access to the underlying data for the models to work and for the algorithms to work and make the predictions. So we've heard the news stories that you feed it the bar exam for lawyers, AI processes it all, spits out exam results, and you as a student, you can pass the bar exam. That assumes access to good data, good quality data, and that good information is being fed in. If you feed in a series of fake answers to the bar exam, then AI will tend to deliver fake answers. AI doesn't know if the answers are correct or not. AI doesn't know the morals and the ethics of what is being created. all of that is way, way over the future. And so our routine operations are going to change. Our supporting services are going to change. The industry specific aspects are going to change. And we're going to need to manage the risk around how we use AI. We take it up and do it. You've already seen the stories that proprietary code has been copied and pasted into public source AI. That new code has been generated and it's been put straight into production without any quality assurance and cause control. The takeout message is AI will get implemented in a manageable, sustainable way. Yes, they'll make mistakes, will do silly things, but a lot of the problems that we are already facing now with AI, even as primitive as it is compared to 5 or 10 years' time, are not the failures in technology. They're the failures in operations, processes, skilling, and everything else. Now, let me just pause there. First of all, Bargo, have you joined the call yet?
I saw one, but I'm not sure whether he's the same.
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll through my participants list and see if Bargo Bahat has joined the call. Uh, okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But before we go on any further, are there any comments that anybody would like to make? Any questions that they have around what we've covered so far?
Looks like no questions. You can go ahead.
Right. Okay, we want to look at some myths and realities around AI because AI is here, it's in our lives now, it's impacting us. So, this was from May this year in an event in Sydney, and the sort of square man in the sky was a whole series of drones that were flying together. And they would detect each other's presence, respond accordingly, and there was a whole light festival associated with it. If you look at Vivid 2023, you'll see many, many more photographs like this. So drones and light shows are a positive example of where AI is already in our lives and impacting our lives for a beneficial perspective. Now, we've all seen drone footage on the news from different war areas around the world. Drones are now a fundamental part of military strategy and national defense. Whether it's the big American ones or the much smaller ones that you've seen in the Ukraine war, controlled by your iPhone. Again, drones are here. They're impacting our lives, and AI is here impacting how we fight wars. Now, we've seen pictures of these robotic dogs. Some of them are now walking around Singapore airport, uh, doing regular patrols and protection and things like that. We've seen some of the more humorous aspects of emerging AI with robotics. And we've seen the sort of Hollywood doomsday scenario movies where AI takes over the lives of everybody. The reality at the moment is that the AI is in its early days. The transformation is coming. It's going to ramp up. But the message that I want to take out is, if you're in a business, your business is already being impacted by AI, whether we're conscious of it or not. And therefore, we need to prepare and work our way through it, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the following sections. Now, Bargo, are you on the call? Okay, in about 3 slides' time, we'll take a change of tack on the presentation. Now,
So the thing is, even if he's there, since he is muted, he will not be able to talk. So
okay,
we have to search if he's in.
yep. So in
Yeah, he's
about
in.
in about 3 or 4 slides' time, Bargo was going to walk us through a worked example with Chat GPT,
Okay.
and hopefully he'll be here and we can still do that. Now, there's ChatGPT has taken the headlines. The Hollywood actors strike is probably the first example of a business being impacted majorly by IT and AI, leading to strikes. There has been others and there will be more. And the Hollywood actors strike, yes, there was more to it than the AI and the use of Chat GPT. But again, it's an example of the impacts that are coming down the pipeline. Now, there's about half a dozen main types of AI. There's computer vision, there's fuzzy logic, there's expert systems, there's robotics. We've talked about the dogs. We've talked about the drones, the robots on the manufacturing assembly line, creating cars are all using AI. There's the machine to machine learning that we've talked about, data and algorithms. There's the neural networks, and there's the deep language processing. And we've seen the sort of chatbots on the websites where you ask a question of it when you're trying to get your mobile phone account sorted out. Now, just to give you a couple of examples, China is one of the world's leaders in facial recognition software. When you get your passport scanned at the airport and you go through passport control, that's just one of many examples of facial recognition. If you've used various security apps on your iPhone, they take a picture of you and then they verify that it's you. That's another example of facial recognition and AI. Due to the government policies within China, China has already started to tie things like your facial recognition in a camera as you walk down the street to that you haven't paid your taxes, therefore you are not allowed to take a train and travel interstate. So these technologies are already coming, they're already being used, and they're already being integrated. If you look at Israel, Israel is one of the leaders in voice recognition software and call centers and service center management. There is software in the call centers that recognizes the stress in the voice of a customer, and they have software that's predicting and prompting the people in the service center to try and manage through the issue. These are all opportunities in their early days. They're all coming through, and again, they create a whole series of business opportunities. Now, there's a simple slide here which says these are some of the current applications of AI, and basically it's getting into every area of business. Now, let me just skip forward very quickly. I'm not going to get into any specific software in any detail, but I just want to walk you through this. If you're speaking into your mobile phone, you're using the likes of Siri and Alexa, and you say, Siri, give me a beep in 10 minutes so you can time the cooking of your eggs. All of this is using AI, and it's here now and it's being used. Uh, Netflix, in India, do you get Netflix or have you got an Indian equivalent?
We
You
have the
get
Netflix also. We have it.
Right. So all the recommendations that Netflix is making to you based on your viewing habits, those from other people that match the things that you watch, all of that AI is being used now to keep you glued to Netflix. And it's the same with YouTube, social media, and all the others. Chat GPT we'll talk about in a minute. Now, transcription software that uses AI, an example is Otter. Those who have children who are fudging their homework while we're all busy cooking dinner and doing everything else, they're using things like Socratic to actually help them with their software, as well as ChatGPT. And you've seen some of the deep fake stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute. That's coming out of presentation tools like Canva, and that's all using AI that's driving everything. Now, Bargo, are you okay?
You want to say something?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
can you unmute Bhargav? But
We'll come back to that. We'll leave some time at the end. The idea is that we'll actually look at ChatGPT which is one of the types of AI, in a real instance, and to show what it's being used for now. So we'll come back to that. Now, on the left-hand side, you've got some areas where Chat GPT and AI is already impacting what we do. And down the right-hand side are some of the challenges that go with it. So in education, we already have students using Chat GPT to pass exams, to write essays. Educational institutions are trying to respond to this. In business, we already have AI doing things like e-discovery. E-discovery is where there's a lawsuit. It goes through all of the emails, all of the documents, and pulls out relevant information to a particular court case. Uh, we've we've seen it used for generating source code. We're seeing it used to generate tax returns and covering letters. And we've seen it being used in engineering designs. So you're designing a construction site and you're designing a drainage ditch. AI is analyzing 100 or more previous designs of drainage ditches in similar situations to help the design process go faster. Children are having fun sending cease and desist letters as pranks to other children, causing their parents a bunch of stress. You've also heard the ones that kids now write letters in ChatGPT and send it to the teacher so they get out of homework and these kinds of things. Now, one of the bigger areas is the criminal, the nefarious uses of ChatGPT and AI. This is on an exponential growth pattern. So the criminal organizations are sending messages to you as SMS messages, as email, whatever, to say your parcel hasn't arrived. Click here. What the telcos have done and the telecommunications company have done is they've applied AI to analyze these activities and reduce the number of these scams that you get. So if you think you're getting inundated with a lot of these scams, there's actually many, many, many more because the telcos and those people are starting to work behind the scenes. We'll talk about election propaganda, deep fakes. If we get time, we'll talk a little bit about financial crime. And one of the worst scenarios that is actually happening now is chat is AI is being used in family disputes around cases of child abuse. Now, I don't want to be negative. I just want to paint the picture. On the other side, we know that the digital divide is increasing, and AI is going to enhance the digital divide. And as a society, is it a priority of ours to address the digital divide? There's the technology aspects. We brushed on the data, and one of the biggest areas coming up is regulatory, whether it's privacy, security, safety. If you look at the EU, they've just passed their first set of legislation to protect people around AI. They're the first major market in the world to do it. That AI legislation has depended upon some legislation for a thing called data governance, which is just how do we manage and supply data with privacy access, your ability to find out who's seeing your data. So as we move forward and we start to implement more regulations to protect us from AI, we're going to have to look at other regulatory areas that go with it. There's a friend and I are doing a piece of work for the Malaysian government at the moment around trying to take the European regulatory framework for data governance and apply it in a Malaysian context. And I know that there's a similar effort underway within the federal government within India, but I'm not aware of any more details other than that. I haven't forgotten that we want to do the chat GPT. What I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to pause here before we move on. I'd like to come back to the chat GPT demonstration at the end, but I'd like to throw the conversation open to the participants. Any comments, any questions?
Deepfake is one of the things that we have been seeing on the newspaper every day in India. We understand that somebody's face is attached to somebody's body,
Yeah,
and this is a common thing, especially if you're very aggressive on the social media. What
yeah,
happens is the photos are faked and videos are created out of your photos. Your face is faked, and it is being misused a lot.
that's
So
right. Sorry,
two
please
things,
carry on.
two things from your side, if you can tell as to how we can protect ourselves. In particular, the female in India, the women in the world, how can they protect themselves? And second thing is, why is it happening? Is it good or bad? What is
Right.
your thought?
Okay, let me take the second part first. Some of it is in humor. Yeah. Some of it is people think it's funny when it isn't. And there are some people that are just doing it to be bad people out of spite for whatever reason. It's a human thing. We're going to struggle to address it. Now, Addressing it, which is the first part of your question, comes in a couple of parts. One is there's the education and awareness. So just as adverts are run on TV to get you not to speed, ads are put on TV to get you not to drink drive, ads are put on TV and social media around taking drugs. Those kinds of societal campaigns will need to come into play around AI. The second one is the regulatory framework and the regulation that'll come with it. That always takes time and it's slower. And the third component is people doing proactive prosecutions. And again, they take time to catch up and work our way through. But if you're defamed, you can sue now. I know it's complicated, it's difficult. Not everybody has the money, but there will be more and more of these instances which will start to kick in. Now, the last component, which I want to get to further down the track, is how governments need to intervene in the markets and regulate market failures. That's what government does. Now, if you look at Facebook, Facebook is a classic whereby they have their algorithm with the AI running one way, and it's causing a whole bunch of societal grief. Facebook changed the algorithm, their profits went down, and the amount of societal grief also went down. They then lobbied and got their political way and changed the algorithm. Their profits have gone back up, and teenage suicide has increased accordingly. And this is well documented in the media. Now, on the one hand, you can't blame Facebook for having a winning strategy and being able to get away with what they have, because society lets them do it, the politicians let them do it, and the lawsuits against Facebook are not big enough and punitive enough to actually bring a change in the behavior of the social media companies. Sorry to say that. So in your question, it's going to be a mixture of education. It's going to be a mixture of societal pressure. It's going to be a mixture of regulatory, and it's lobbying politicians to do things in the vested interests of people. And all of those will take time, will be slow, and are not easy things to do. But these are some of the challenges that as a society will work our way through. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Keith, thank you. One another question.
Please.
Sometime back, you mentioned that there will be some lapse in jobs,
Yes.
but is it not going to be a dangerous situation for the whole world? I mean, if
Ah.
some lapses, it looks like it's
Yes.
going to be too many laps because we don't need any news readers anymore, right? It can
Okay.
be quick.
Yes. Now, anybody that says they know the answer to this isn't being honest. Yeah. What I think I've got some slides, but which we can come back to. But let's cover it off now. We know that roles will change. If you look at the move from agriculture, where it was labor intensive, and they moved to high intensity automated agriculture, factory warehouse agriculture, those people moved into manufacturing. Now that manufacturing is automated with robots, they all moved into the service industry. And the big question is, all those people in the service industry, what happens next? Now, there will be new jobs created. There will be jobs that lapse, like people selling DVDs. I mean, there's some people there, but not a lot. Now, how society makes that transition, is the wealth going to fall into the hands of a few selected people and everybody else rushes into poverty? Is it going to be more managed? That's part of the challenges that we have. Now, I'll give you one more example. If you look at healthcare, one of the biggest costs in healthcare is changing bed sheets on sick people. The robot can change the bed sheet, but the human being will not stay put. They won't sit in the right place. They won't stay there for the time that's needed for the robot to work around it. So it's going to be a long time before some jobs actually get automated. And then the question also becomes, if you're a lawyer on $500 an hour, 25,000 rupees, I think, 50 rupee to the dollar times 500, yeah, 25,000. Are you going to take a wage at 10 rupee a day changing bed sheets? This is all part of the challenge that we have to work our way through. Hopefully, it'll be positive. We know that the economy tends to grow. We know that more wealth tends to come along with all of these transitions. It's how we make the transition, what happens to people, and and how that wealth gets distributed. And we've got a slide a little bit later in the deck around government and government services and some of the things they're going to need to consider. Did that answer your question?
Yes, Keith.
Good.
Just to add a little more, and for the benefit of everybody, today there is something called as robotic surgeries. It's not just changing of the bedspreads; it's beyond that. The doctor's job is being done by robots. One of my friends is undergoing a kneecap surgery assisted by a robot.
Yeah.
Uh, so this is what is the current situation. And today, many of the codes, if I go to Chat GPT and say, hey, you give me a let's say Visual Basic code to do this things, I get a clear function which I can plug and play. I can just take it and copy paste it into my window, and things are done. This is where we stand at the moment, and it's going to grow a little more than what we are talking today.
Correct. It's going to grow. And that's an example of the autopilot model, whereby you're creating things for the first time. Once it's in ChatGPT, it can recycle it and use it, but you're still making sure that quality outcomes are being delivered. And that's an example of the change in skill sets that's coming down the pipeline. So let's move on. I want to talk about business opportunities. As with any market disruption, you've got the advantages of being the first movers in the market. But let's not get too excited, because if you think as a software company, you're going to write AI and take on Microsoft or Amazon, you're going to struggle unless you come up with something that is totally innovative or you do the specialization. So Microsoft is unlikely to spend time creating specialist AI-driven software for specialist aspects within manufacturing assembly lines. The existing companies that provide the manufacturing assembly software, they will include the AI. But again, there's the first mover's advantage. In any market disruption, incumbents, if they respond fast enough, get bigger and get ahead. And there's going to be a lot of work around mergers and acquisitions. If you've already looked at some of the AI, there's a lot of buyouts and mergers, acquisitions going on. There will be new businesses. Businesses will change their models, and some businesses will lapse. I don't know which ones. There are some people making predictions, but let's take that with a pinch of salt. And then there's all the emerging areas like sector-specific AI embedded in specific solutions. Now, assurance services. So assuring that the outcome from ChatGPT is of quality and it's used across the organization in a professional way, there's work to be had there. I've just noticed a comment in the chat, which I'll come to in a minute. There's all the data services, and there's business supporting operations and services around AI. Now, there's a comment in the chat, but you still need humans to feed the basic information in. Absolutely. This is where we've talked about the autopilot model, where you create for the first time, you assure the outcomes, you intervene when things go wrong, and you move into complex stakeholder management, and that takes up more and more of your time. So this is the 10,000 foot on some of the areas of business opportunities. Now, we've sort of covered off this before. There's a whole series of services in education coming, whether it's training in AI software, whether it's industry advisory, whether it's creating standards for industry around AI within a particular market sector, like transport and logistics. And there's a big one around accreditation and certification. There's big educational opportunities coming down the pipeline. We can talk about some more of them in more detail offline. There's going to be a big area is the provision of data in terms of quality, access, permissions, but even getting the data and getting it integrated to provide solutions for the AI to use. Now, increasingly, we will be using derived products. So we will combine weather data with agriculture growth data, with satellite tracking of harvesters so that we can meet a particular contractual obligation for the shipping of corn, let's say. We will be using different data from different sources, blending it together with and using these derived products. And we can talk about some of the challenge with that one a little bit more. Now, assurance, audit, and risk management are obviously going to be integral to what we do. So if you're a large government agency and you start to have people using ChatGPT to create letters, then we need the audit function to make sure that it's working. We need the assurance to make sure that the people are using it in the right way, they're skilled how to do it, and those sorts of things. And now on the employment side, there will be changes in the recruiting process and the hiring process. We're going to be changing our performance metrics. When we hire people, not only will they need to be able to use AI in their job, but we still need to make sure they can do their job without AI. So there's no point in hiring somebody who's just going to copy and paste code into ChatGPT and dispense it as their work, because how are they going to get any quality control over it? So just as we will hire now a software developer and test them to write some code, we will test them with ChatGPT, or with AI and without AI. And these are some of the business integration issues that businesses at different levels will need to be working through. Now, don't worry about the complexity of this diagram. There's a core platform of mobile computing, cloud computing, Internet of Things, and all that stuff off which we operate. There's all the things that we use like Gmail, which is software as a service. Those of us that are familiar with some of the cloud providers, we don't go and buy servers at the shop anymore. We just go to Amazon or Microsoft and get the IT guys to source virtual servers from there and databases. Now, there's a whole bunch of new services that are creating, like project management as a service, business analysis as a service, testing as a service. These will be services provided out of the cloud, highly automated, using AI. How we do it, how we transition is another question. Now, if you're a 20-year-old starting off your career in tax, there's three broad career paths for you. One is doing high-end specialist tax as a manual process, and that's going to stay there for a while. The bulk of tax processing is, and the routine tax processing is going to get increasingly automated. All the purchases that you make and you track in your accounting software will just get processed through, reconciled against your bank account, and the tax thing produced, which will then be automatically messaged to the tax office. That's coming. Now, once that's taken up, that changes the business models of accountants and all of those sort of things. But the message is you don't need many people to do it. Now, the third major career area is designing, operating, and managing these automated services and getting large companies to use them and getting other companies to use them. So that's just one example of cloud-based services that are emerging. And again, we've talked about the machine to machine and all of those bits. We will share the slides after the session, and you can go through this in a little bit of detail. I want to skip through the next two slides at a bit of pace. We've talked about tax as a service, and there's a couple of other examples, but one of the ones I want to pick is government policy. There's going to be a need to prioritize skilling and training. Now, who pays for it? Who does it? Whether it's done by private businesses, that's all still to be worked through, but it's one of the challenges. Now, universities will need to change their focus, what they teach, and how they teach. And there's going to be a big area of accreditation and certification, as we've mentioned before. The accreditation and certification will be needed to grow the skill base, make the skill base easier to transfer across employers and aspects like that. And things like different bureau models, we can have a wider conversation there. But again, we'll share the slides and you can go through it. And I'm just going to pick financial crime as one example. Australian banks pay outsource operations in India to screen financial transactions, and let's just pick Cuba. In Australia, we can only send certain payments to certain entities within Cuba. So what happens is all the transactions get screened for Cuba. Then we say, right, that's Cuba Street in Auckland. It's not Cuba, the country, with sanctions. So these ones past that level of screening. And it's a manual process that's becoming more mature, increasingly using AI. One of the big opportunities for Indian companies is to create the next generation of software around AI for things like sanctions screening, and then getting that embedded in with their clients and realizing the services and revenue opportunities. And what you'll see from this example is that there's 4 or 5, and you can see how it'll become more and more sophisticated, like facial recognition with fraud. And if you look at China, they're already trying to pioneer that. And some of the Indian companies are sort of getting a little bit left behind. I won't comment on the Australian ones. Now, some other areas for consideration. Right. Governments, especially in democracies, are highly at risk from artificial intelligence, whether it's fake requests, fake news items, deep fake imaging, those sorts of things. Those challenges are hitting political campaigns now, and it's going to get more sophisticated. AI is being used more and more in political campaigns, and AI will be used more and more to counteract the negatives and the bad things within political campaigns. Before we move on past political campaigns, any questions or comments?
Since all are muted, I request anybody who has any questions, please put it in the chat, and that can be taken up at the end.
Yep. Now, we want to talk about governments very quickly. We've sort of brushed on this, but governments are going to have a major role in AI, how it gets developed, how it gets managed, and how society responds. Not only do they need to put it into their own operations, and they've got to integrate across agencies, they've got the data sharing and the data management issues, they've got staffing issues, there's government policy issues. So there's a whole bunch of work in helping government do all of that for their own needs. A lot of the services they provide around education, healthcare, infrastructure. Yep, I've seen the hand go up. I'll come to you in a moment. These services which we use will be using AI in the provision and management of these services. I'll just do supporting community and regulatory and then come back to the hand that is up. Now, governments will need to do grants. They will need to do tax changes. They will need to do payments and allowances. If we are taking 2 million people and making them unemployed because of what AI is doing, are we going to give them social welfare payments? Do we have the money to do it? Again, all the things to work through, incentives and investments, skilling, relocation of people. We know that markets will change. Will governments need to relocate people from one area of a country to another in relation to the changes that AI is bringing? These are some of the ones. And again, with regulatory, government's going to be involved with license and permits. Are you going to get licenses out of government to do certain things around AI? Surveillance, we've already talked about what China's already doing. Defense, national security, public safety. We've already seen the drones. The way prosecutions will be undertaken will change because of AI, and there will be prosecutions where AI has damaged somebody. Okay, there was Sundar, you've got a question? Yes, the cryptographic context of AI. Okay, there's two parts to this one. One is AI is used to break the algorithms that are used to encrypt information. So if AI can now makes everything unsecure, everything that you pushed through as secure before now becomes unsecure. AI will also be involved in monitoring the movement of messages, who is looking at it, what level of encryption there is, and those aspects. And that ties back a little bit to one of the earlier slides about 2030, when quantum computing comes in and a lot of the current encryptions will cease to work. So to summarize, AI is involved in analyzing, it's involved in the creation of the cryptography, it's involved in monitoring the cryptography, and AI will break the cryptography that we have based on quantum computing in 2030. So the experts tell me, and that's why there's an edict issued out of the United States to get it resolved. Okay, does that answer that question in the chat?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Beautiful. And before we move on from government services, is there anything else around the role of government, the business opportunities in helping government, to talk to? Any comments, any clarification sought? Okay, we can come back at the end and I'll take that silence as we can move on. Now, all of this AI stuff and all of this transformation is going to create uncertainty, and we live with it now. And some people are better at it and other people less with it. We've talked about the crime aspects coming from AI, of the scams, the bribery, the blackmail, but there's the emotional side that is going to come through, which as a society, we will need to manage, because if more people are getting their money stolen, more people are getting their lives disrupted, the law enforcement agencies can't keep up. How do we respond? Now, there's going to be quite a bit of disruption. There's going to be loss of services, loss of funds. We've already had Australian banks try to do mortgage approvals in a totally automated process. And what they did is they only looked at a subset of liabilities rather than a customer's total liabilities. They lent them money that they couldn't pay back. The regulators have intervened. They've given them fines and say, manage your AI better. But there's going to be a lot of disruption that comes with AI. We've seen the first strikes around AI with Hollywood. We know there's more to come. We've already seen protests at G20 summits and G7 summits around AI. And there's going to be a question around what level of disobedience comes into society, what is acceptable, and how we manage it. We look for leadership, and I'm not making any bias here on any politician, of any political party or persuasion, but we see the media coverage every day where people are dissatisfied with leadership. They're dissatisfied with the messaging. They're feeling left out. There's a lack of empathy. They don't believe people because it's no longer credible, and people feel insecure. And then governments, how are you going to manage it? Governments, right or wrong, are driven by vested interests. How do we manage that through? How do we educate? How is safety going to be guaranteed? And how is security going to be assured? Now, let's not leave on a negative one. I'm going to pause. There's two new messages in the chat. Joseph, you've written yes in the chat. Was that a question that I asked you? Hi, Joseph. Okay, we'll come back to that one. And thank you for that one. Expert discussion here. Great insights into AI. Now, I want to do a couple of quick slides. Then I'd like to go back, if Bargo is available, and do the Chat GPT session, and then throw it open to more conversation. Mr. Chairman, we've got time to do that?
Yeah, let's take another 10-15 minutes because people are saying it's very interesting.
Great, thank you. So this one here, sorry, let me skip forward a couple of bits. We won't get into, we'll skip quite a few bits because we sort of brushed upon some of these, but we've run out of time. Now, I'll just wrap up with couple of summary slides. Getting AI implemented is going to require an integrated approach around policy. And it doesn't matter if you're a local council, it doesn't matter if you're Tata and a global Indian company. There's a whole series of policy management issues that will need to come through and get worked through. Education, building up the workforce, building up the skills and capacities and capabilities, changing what universities teach, changing industry accreditations and certifications, and teaching kids in schools now how to live and manage with and without AI is going to be needed. Now, we're all aware of the demands on the education system and some of the challenges. This is just going to add a level of complexity. We've sort of talked about a little bit about leadership. Now, one of the biggest ones is going to be, how is this all going to be paid for? Do we instigate new taxes on new services that use AI in new ways? And the Hollywood strike around, I'm an actor, my image is taken, and then it's used for all these things without my permission. Things like, I've written a book, it's now feeding ChatGPT and OpenAI, where's my royalties? Should we be implementing a tax on ChatGPT services? I'm not advocating that we should, and I'm not advocating that we shouldn't. But these are the kinds of conversations that as a society we will need to have. Now, when technology transformation becomes a national security issue, when it becomes an educational priority, and when it becomes a cornerstone of economic policy, we will know that we are in reasonable shape to manage the transformation that's coming from both AI and technology. At the moment, I don't know of any politician anywhere, and that's probably me not being across it, that is running on the economic benefits that AI is going to bring to a country. So just leave you that thought. There's a couple of links here, one to a whole series of videos on business transformation, and one with a whole series of videos covering implementing AI, whether it's into service centers, whether it's into government, whether it's into business. I have the privilege on the 29th and 30th of December to be a dial-in participant and a keynote speaker at a conference around AI in healthcare. And one of the big topics that's already coming up is how do we manage AI across the complexity of healthcare? Now, two more messages are in the chat. Bargo, are you on the call? Okay, Bargo. Right, we may not be able to do the chat GPT. So, Joseph, will the government have the money to do so, as most governments among nations becoming right-wing? Joseph, I can't comment on the politics around it. There's a couple of key themes that are coming out. If you look at the way social media has been implemented, they were able to get a whole series of exemptions from government policy, and they've been able to leverage that to their advantage. The wealth from social media has gone into a small bunch of hands of a very elite group of people. As a society, we should be fixing that, and we should be doing better regulations on Facebook, as we've talked about before. But with AI, what the scale of transformation we're looking at is we went through the entire agrarian revolution, and thousands of people came off the land and went into manufacturing. When manufacturing got automated, that these people went into service industries. Some made the transition, some didn't. And unless government takes a more equitable approach, it is going to have a lot of societal problems to manage. And we know that because of history. How they quite pan out, can't comment. Joseph, are you okay with that one?
He's shown a thumbs up. He's okay with that.
Good. And as a financial planner, sorry, I can't see your name. You're saying there are a lot of scope to take my business into AI and to the next level. Thanks for the organization of this. Yes, financial planning is going to go to the whole next level around AI, not only in terms of household budgets, not only in terms of doing data analysis, trends, and those sorts of things. The employment status of people is going to change. If you look at people in their sort of 40s and 50s, many of them have been with one company for an extended period of time, or maybe one or two companies, and they've got superannuation and those sort of things. If you look at the 20-year-olds starting off now, doing the food deliveries at minimal wage with no safety protections, no income protections, no superannuation, how do they manage and plan for their future is going to be a question that financial planners will get asked, I'm sure. And there's another new message. Yep, Joseph, that's okay. Now, Bargo, are you on the call?
I think Bhargav is not on the call.
Okay, so sorry, we won't be able to do a chat GP demonstration. Maybe if we do another session on some of the implementation impacts or something like that, we'll be able to do it then. We've covered a lot of ground.
Hello.
So I would like to throw this open to questions, comments, and feedback. And then very quickly, we will share the slides, and the session has been recorded, and that can be shared as well. So please, open to the floor.
I think, Arvind, you have to unmute everybody and request everybody to talk one after the other if they have any questions.
Oh, sure. So now, Kit, please stop sharing the screen. So now everyone can mute him or herself and ask any question if they have in mind. And please be precise and don't repeat the questions, please.
Good evening, Kate. I'm Joseph with you. We just later in the evening in
Hi,
Cochin, in
Joseph.
India.
Good to meet you.
Pleasure's mine always. And if you're coming into Cochin as you're coming into MIT University in January, would love to meet you if you're coming into Cochin. Welcome to God's own country.
Please, we'll share details offline and sort everything out there, but please go ahead.
Yeah, this you were talking about the AI going to become disruptive in the sense where, and would the governments have the financial ability to relocate people, to rebridge them to different sectors, to different segments? Whereas, as you said, as my father probably worked for 33 or 34 years in one company, I'm just around 40, and I've already been working with around 14 or 15 odd companies. And the future is definitely, we had a movie, if you remember, The Clear and Present Danger.
Yeah.
But now this looks like the clear and fearful future awaits us. Because the living costs have gone up. It's
Yep.
it's not just about the hospitals or the beds, because we are going to definitely live past the 70s and 80s and 90s. Food is going to be expensive. Education is going to be expensive. I am pretty sure probably in a decade or two, we would be all paying tax to breathe air and drink water.
This is this one where what we talked about at the beginning. We've seen the Hollywood movies and the doomsday scenarios. We have the people painting the picture that AI is going to be a nirvana and it's just going to happen instantly. If we look at humanity and us as people, you look at the historical trends, we know it's going to be somewhere in between. On the one hand, there is tremendous opportunity. It's one of the most dynamic, exciting, vibrant times that we are in. The opportunities are huge, but that's the heads of the coin. On the flip side of the coin, it depends how we manage this. And that's why the talk is about AI is something that has to be managed. Now, whether you run a 5-person manufacturing plant doing very simple manufacturing, whether you're the government faced with all of these challenges, we've tried to paint a picture of some of the things that we need to have conversations about. And we know that even at the 5-person assembly line, AI is coming. They're going to have to skill people up. They're going to have to manage the risk. They're going to have to put steps in place to make sure that they're not putting out rubbish and going to be on the end of a lawsuit. A 35,000 employee company has to do the same. Now, how it does it, the scale it does it at, the time, the tools, that's going to differ. But we know it needs to be done. We know governments will need to work through a lot of the things that we've done. Whether there's actually relocations in a given country, who knows? But the potential exists. Why? Because when we reformed agriculture, people had to be relocated off the land. Now, I know we can work over the internet and those sort of things, but I'll give you the classic example. Holland is probably the second biggest exporter of agricultural products after the US. Not internal consumption, external consumption. It's got those massive factory warehouses where the robot plants, goes along the next day and says, hey, you need some nitrogen. I'll give you some nitrogen. Goes along, 10 days later, it harvests it, puts it on the truck, and the truck is driving up the high street of London, dropping off to 5 different greengrocers the next day. That is there now. It uses AI. It's coming and it's going to be applied more widely. That is causing people to relocate. Hi, are you all still there?
Yeah, I'm still there with you.
Yep, that's all right. You're back. Zoom did something funny. So, Joseph, does that answer your question?
Yes, in a very broad way, definitely. But then it's again like we had the agricultural revolution, so the industrial revolution, and now probably the real IT revolution. This is gonna come in. So probably with AI, it comes in totally in a different ball game.
Correct.
It just have to be which side of the coin you're gonna be.
That's right. And do you remember we said, like, will governments have to levy new taxes on products and services created by AI products? I'm not a fan of paying more tax.
Definitely neither me.
But as a society in a given country or in a given state, there may be a need to have that conversation, and those policies may be needed. We don't know if they're going to be, but this is just the sheer spectrum of opportunities that exists and business opportunities that are there in support of government.
It's just like bringing the iceberg back.
Yeah.
The AI iceberg. We're just at the tip of it.
That's right. Joseph, lovely to talk to you. I'm not going to don't mean to be rude, but I'm just going to throw it open to some other questions. And
definitely.
Let's catch up offline.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Joseph. Anyone had a question?
If there are no questions, I want to let you know, Keith, that somebody from Uganda, a Rotarian from Uganda, says, nice one with a lot of takeaways for business. He is the CEO of a company called as Megawatt in Uganda. I don't know why he did not post it here, but then he wanted to send it to me separately. This was a nice one, is what I mean. This is what people feel. I will let anybody to ask any questions further. Otherwise, we will take it to Rajamohan for the to say thanks to everybody.
Yeah. So Sachin, what were you really at a posh hotel on the balcony in front of the Sydney Opera House?
I'm sorry, I did not get you.
Oh, the picture of there's a picture of somebody in front of the Sydney Opera
That
House.
was in 2014 when I came to Sydney. that was the Rotary International Convention I attended.
Very childhood memories.
Hey, 10 years ago is not childhood, man.
So now move to Rajamohan. Please, Rajamohan, for concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, friends. Here is my impression about the meeting. The greatest fear and the biggest questions that we all have today is AI taking over, or rather overpowering the intellect of human beings? Is really a threat for most of us, because our understanding is also quite nascent at this stage. AI could be used for nefarious activities, and it's going to be a major challenge for us. It's time people started learning the risks associated with everything digital that they're going to deal with. We're already putting up with a lot of scam mails and scam calls, OTP issues, and all that. So I'm sure we're going to be catching up with the AA also. And sessions like these from experts like Keith is going to really be an eye opener for many of us. Looks like from drones to robotic dogs to chatbots and all sorts of application programs will definitely have AI embedded going forward. There'll be it looks like we're going to have a massive impact on the government policy. As you all know, all successful companies know exactly what the current policy of the government is if they have to survive. Otherwise, any size company, big or small, is going to go down if they are not going to follow the government policy. For example, we quickly adopted to the GDPR, and currently we are seeing the ongoing, carbon emission standards in which is being implemented in Europe in a big way. I'm sure AI legislation will also be taken up seriously going forward when all things, with the dust settles. So I've been in the IT industry for over 28 years now, and I used to attend a lot of conferences, and every time the big wigs, like Intel and Microsoft used to come and say that these are the changes expected in the next 2 years. We never used to believe. It happened every year, whenever they said, we never used to believe. And AI is one such thing that we've been hearing more often nowadays. There are still majority of the people who don't believe that it's going to happen, but it'll hit us hard. Well, the good news here is that it will also create a lot of jobs, and that not all the jobs will vanish. As you rightly said, this has been the case always whenever it was the first world or the second world or the third world super industrialization. We've still had a growth in terms of the jobs. Only thing is that it shifted to a different domain altogether. Overall, Keith, it was so easy to follow. Your session was so easy. Your slides were so concise. You're such a great communicator. Every word spoken by you was so clear. The content delivered today, and you gave a great overview about what is going to come in the future in terms of AI. Keith, I feel that you're already part of this prestigious RMB fellowship, and I'm sure all the participants of this session will refer you for consultation and services wherever appropriate and whatever appropriate with respect to AI. I thank Bhargav, Rotarian Bhargav, for introducing you to us. I thank the board of RMB Fellowship, particularly Sachin and Arvind, for being here and really helping our members to get more knowledge about this latest subject. I thank each one of you participant for being here. It was wonderful knowing all of you. Thank you so much, Keith. We would like to have a much extensive session in the future. Thank you very much, Keith.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I just add one point?
Yeah.
Yes, that we've painted a picture, and we tried to do the good and some of the challenges. Please don't walk away feeling negative, that sort of thing. Yes, there is uncertainty. One of humanity's greatest strengths is we navigate uncertainty. Yes, it may not be smooth, but we navigate uncertainty. And I just think there are just so many positive aspects to this that eventually they will outweigh the negative. Of course, the negative is there, but please walk out of here thinking about what can be achieved, what are the business opportunities that can be had, whether it's tax, whether it's financial services, whether it's doing audit for government on a 3-line defense model to assure the quality of AI outcomes. Please walk out feeling that there is so much to be realized. And thank you very much indeed for the comments. Yeah, Joseph, I've got your number. Thank you very much. I'll message you shortly.
Okay.
And yeah, if you would like another session like this, let me know. If you would like to do some more detailed themes, please work it through and just let me know how we can help you out.
Sure, Keith, that's very nice of you. We will connect with you once again. We may wish to go deeper into how to use the chat GPT, what are the alternates, how to try, deep fake. For example, I want to see Arvind Batra in Aishwarya Rai's dress, right? Something like that. So these are the things that we may want to know, understand, the options available. At the moment, when we say AI, we only know ChatGPT. There are many more. You also mentioned a few of them, but then we need to know deeper. We need to get deeper into it, and we will connect with you. Wish you a very happy Christmas and a great New Year.
Beautiful. And we'll share the slides and the recording shortly. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
all.
so much.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.